This is one of the most important scenes that we see in the trailer, and it stands out for two very simple reasons. The first is that we literally saw Jim Matthews getting absolutely bodied by the man in yellow the very last time that we ever saw him. So clearly he's either been resurrected, or what I think is actually the case, and what is clearly happening here is that this is obviously the entity that's in control of the monsters, manipulating Ethan into convincing the other people of the town that continuing in whatever the quest of this season is going to end up being is a good thing, even though it clearly will not be by the end of this story. And if you are wondering how I know with 100% certainty that this is clearly the case and why I can say this without any doubt or hesitation whatsoever, well, it's because this literally isn't even the first time that we've seen the entity specifically impersonating a dead member of the Matthews' family to manipulate Ethan in particular.
Mom's in an ambulance. You have to help her.
Who is this?
It's Thomas.
Who are you talking to?
You should be watching Julie and Ethan.
You leave my children alone.
But they're not your children anymore.
Like this scene that happens with the dead baby on the telephone calling Ethan and telling him that Tabitha was in the ambulance was literally the only reason why Boyd ended up trading Randall to the monsters, which led to Randall calling out Boyd for abandoning him, and it's also why Fatima was able to feed her demonic baby with human blood, which eventually leads to Smiley's rebirth. But more importantly, the information given by this obviously evil being on the telephone was part of a wider plan by whoever it is that's actually in control of the monsters to destabilize the town by destroying the illusion of Boyd's regime, by making him look highly incompetent, as well as making him look like a generally immoral human being, while also making the townspeople believe that escaping and therefore winning against the monsters and the town is impossible. Like, this is literally why we know that Tabitha's exit and return into the town is crucial and was one of the linchpins of the entire strategy by the evil forces of the town. And this entire thing being clearly organized and planned for by the same being who controls the monsters is something that we know for a fact because they literally set up a trap for the ambulance before it arrived. Like, come on, man. They always wanted it to happen. But what I want you to pay attention to the most here in regards to the season 4 trailer is that all of this was only even possible first and foremost directly because the entity calls Ethan on the telephone, because he knew that once Ethan believed his mother was in the ambulance, he'd be willing to do anything it would take to save her from death, which would force Boyd and of course Jim Matthews as well into taking action so that Ethan would not do it himself. So all in all, this entire situation was a masterclass in how incredible the entity in control of the monsters has the fools living in this town dancing around like clowns for his amusement. Like, basically what I'm trying to tell you is that if we assume this version of Jim Matthews is not meant to be a flashback and is going to be seen in the current story, then it's obviously just the entity himself using the form of Jim Matthews to deceive Ethan yet again into leading the people of the town to play his sick games, just like he literally did before, deceiving him when he called him on the telephone by pretending to be his dead brother. And if you're wondering how this could even be possible, like how could he even be capable of doing something like this? Well, may I remind you that he's literally been doing this same exact thing with multiple other characters for the entirety of the story. That's why what I'm about to show you matters so much.
When I was in that chamber, a thing that was talking to me, telling me to give up, sure as hell wasn't my wife. So what are you?
Like in this scene, Boyd literally says that not only is this being who appears to him as Father Cartry clearly not Father Cartry's ghost, but Boyd specifically accuses this being that presents itself as Father Cartry to being directly connected to the other being who appeared in the dungeon right before Boyd smashed the music box that was pretending to be his dead wife. And what's most noteworthy about this entire scene is that Father Cartry's supposed ghost literally doesn't even deny what Boyd accuses him of. Instead, this thing literally says that he isn't going to identify himself for what he really is. Like, Like, how can people not see this? This is what demons do. They lie, they deceive, they use, they manipulate. I know this, you know this, we know this, and yet people still refuse to accept the fact. This is not Father Cutry, just like this is not Boyd's wife. And I want you to notice how Father Cutry's ghost was able to grab physical objects, just like the being pretending to be Tom the bartender was able to grab that glass while he was talking to Jade, and just like this being pretending to be Jim Matthews in the season 4 trailer was able to grab Ethan. And this is just more confirmation for what we should have already known. These beings make themselves look like ghosts of those we have lost to deceive the people of this town. Like, what I'm basically saying is that the only reason they appear with these bodies and with these faces is because they know we are more likely to trust the information they're giving us because of where it's coming from rather than the actual validity of what they're saying. That's why the boy in white appears the way that he does, and he presents himself as a ghost, even though it's already been canonically stated in the show by Sarah that he isn't actually a little boy. He only appears this way to make you believe what he's trying to tell you. And I want you to pay attention here.
Anything else you can tell me about little boy?
I don't think he really was a little boy.
It's the exact same strategy that we see from the kimono demon. It appears the way that it does towards Elgin because that's literally what Elgin believes an angel to look like. That's it. And what we see here is one of the main points and longest running themes of this entire show. Everyone living in this town is being played in so many different ways that we could never even possibly imagine. The level of manipulation going on here is far beyond anything you could possibly comprehend as a human being. Like, when we look at this scene in the season 4 trailer, we see things getting blown around in the kitchen while Julie, Ethan, and Tabitha are watching, and it could not be any more obvious what's going on here. It's clearly leading into a storyline where the entity pretends to be Jim Matthews' ghost to convince Tabitha that continuing this quest to supposedly save the children locked in the tower is a good thing, and that she has to keep doing it, otherwise Jim's death is going to be in vain. And if you want to know how I know this to be the case is, okay, think about this. When Julie was in the dungeon with Martin, we see her throwing the rope down the well, despite the fact that her physical body was left behind having a seizure back at the ruins. So what I'm saying here is that we literally already have conclusive proof that telekinesis, the ability to move objects with your mind, is clearly an ability possessed by all the story walkers in the show. This explains how the entity was able to throw all of these things around in the trailer for season 4, and it also explains a whole bunch of other things, like how the boy in white was able to push Tabitha out of the lighthouse, how the kimono demon was able to grab Elgin in Colony House, how the bartender Tom entity was able to grab that glass at the end of season 2, and of course it also explains how this being pretending to be Jim Matthews was able to grab Ethan in the trailer. People are not paying attention. Like, I don't think you realize just how formulaic and repetitive the entity's strategies always are. He's always doing the exact same thing over and over and over and over again. He uses the same exact strategies so many times that it's crazy. I can't believe these people cannot see. His mode of operation is exactly the same every single time. The bait is exactly the same every single time. It's crazy. Like, in this trailer, we see him yet again using the crows for intimidation. And this is literally the exact same reason why he always places those crows at the fallen tree right before people arrive into the town. It's all about forcing you to choose to make a decision that gives him power over you and your life. There are rules in the game that have to be followed, and even this being that's in control of the monsters is not allowed to break those rules, whatever they may or may not be. And one of the most obvious rules that I've been able to notice is that he can't force you to make a deal with him. This one is incredibly obvious because of what happened at the ambulance trap. The entire thing was a setup that was clearly designed to force Boyd into a position where he felt like he had no other choice but to comply and make a deal to trade Randall for the people in the ambulance. That's why it was of utmost importance to whoever's in control of the monsters that the Nightwalkers had to be present in that moment, and why it's so important for the entity to maintain the illusion that the Nightwalkers cannot be killed or defeated, even though it's obviously just a lie. Because if Boyd knew how to do them in and he was prepared for it at that moment, he would have never traded Randall for the people in the ambulance. This is why it's incredibly naive and laughable when people say that the Nightwalkers willingly sacrificed their children, which doesn't even make any sense because they're clearly not in control of their bodies or even their minds. They were obviously tricked, and honestly, I don't know what's going on with them. Maybe he has their souls or something, I'm not sure. But it's obvious that they were tortured, likely for even decades, by the entity, and he just completely crushed their willpower to the point that they were willing to do anything that they could just to make the pain stop, which, by the way, is the exact same strategy that the entity has been using on Randall by telepathically projecting the sound of the cicadas into his mind. And even when it comes to Boyd, it's very clear that the level of manipulation he's been going through is much worse than anything we can imagine. Like, even in this trailer, Boyd specifically says that he is going to do everything in his power to prevent the people of the town from knowing the truth. And this is an aspect of Boyd's character that I specifically talk about in this video, where I explain how we know for a fact that he was clearly brought in to be the leader of the town by the entity himself.